time for something a bit less known. Now this is a Topcor Uni. This is the top plate. It's very similar to the Topcor Uni Rex, and as far as I know, the Uni Rex and this one, the IC1 Auto, are the only bodies from Topcor that have this weird mount, the UV mount. Everything else is on RE mount, which is actually the exact amount. Anyhow, it's not going to be about the body, because this one is almost ready. It only needs some adjustment to the focusing screen, which for some reason is out of place, so the lenses don't focus to infinity on the ground glass. They do focus on infinity on the film plane itself. Okay, so I long story short, I got this camera together with the other Topcor, so the IC1, and a whole lot of lenses, I think 7 or 8, for a very, very, very attractive price. And they've been sitting in a box ever since, so almost 1 year. And I decided it was time to actually I don't know, finish the job, I suppose. Alright, what am I missing here? I had some parts, yeah, some parts in a box, but I will only get this winding lever back together. This camera and its close relatives, so pretty much everything in the UV line, are not really loved. So you will be hearing a lot of bad words about them because, well, they are weird. They have leaf shutters, except this one. This one has a cloth shutter, if I remember correctly. Yep. Because they were originally designed for leaf shutters, this opening is very small, and therefore the diameter of the lenses, of the rear element of the lens is also small, and that means you can't have fast lenses and so on. But okay, maybe it's not a technologically desirable camera, but for sure it's a very interesting camera. And yeah, it's interesting, and I really want to try it out to see how it feels, especially since I have the whole bunch of lenses, 35, 53, 100, 135 and 200 millimeters. Anyhow, long story short, yeah, it's not about this one, it's about this one. So this is the Topcor UV Topcor 135 millimeters f4. Now I have 3 of these lens, three copies. This one is in the worst shape of the 3. The focusing ring is extremely stiff, so you can barely move it. This is loose, and well, and it's a bit rough around the edges. It's been dropped and so on, but optically it's quite okay. There's no fungus, no chipping, no nothing. The lenses need to be cleaned a bit, and the overall lens needs to be cleaned. So I decided I was going to attack this lens and try to make a video tutorial, since the information you can find online about this Topcon family is extremely scarce. Personally, I couldn't find anything of actual value, so let's see what happens. Now, I don't like to work on lenses. I don't have experience working with lenses. I only did a couple of Russian lenses so far. I find that they are all like a collection of pitfalls for the beginners. So it's very, very easy to mess it up. I almost messed this one up, so yeah, I did open it yesterday, and I did one little mistake that cost me 3 hours of troubleshooting to eventually get it back correctly. So correctly meaning that it can still focus on infinity. And we'll discuss that incident in a bit. Okay, as far as I can tell, pretty much all the lenses in this lineup are constructed similarly, but I will see that if that is true quite soon. Okay, so let's begin. First, the front element is super easy to take out. All you need is a rubber cap. This decorative ring simply unscrews. Then you have a ring with 2 notches for a pointed spanner that also should, but it doesn't. It also should unscrew. And once this ring is out, you can use a lens sucker or simply turn the lens upside down to get the front element out. It's a double, I don't know how it's called, doublet in Romanian, anyhow. So 2 lenses glued together. And then there's nothing all the way down there until there's one more lens group, and then there's the aperture. So the aperture should be visible there. The aperture looks perfectly fine, no oil on the blades, no dust, nothing. It's snappy, so I won't have to work on that. There is also a ring here, a kind of a light baffle or something, that it's kept in place by 2 screws. If you take the screws out, it will you can lift that baffle, but you can't take it out because obviously this opening is too small. So there's got to be another way to get it out. And just beneath this baffle I can see a ring with notches, so that's the retainer ring for the next group, the next optical group. Alright, and now we move to the back of the lens. The back element also unscrews, but right now you don't have access to it. So the first thing to take out will be the mount itself. Now this is the first poorly designed choice, I would say. The actual mount of the lens is this ring, and this ring is made of rather thin aluminum. I'd say it's about, I don't know, 1 millimeter thick, something like that. And therefore it can bend out of shape easily, and I know this because I have so one of the three lenses is actually bent, so it will not mount correctly, it's a bit shifted. Anyhow, it has 1, 2, 3 screws. It also has the registration mark for infinity and the red dot for mounting on the camera. And it also has the lens release button. Now this will have to come off, and it's quite tricky to put back. I kind of got it, so I managed to figure it out, to get a method of putting it back fairly easily, but the first couple of tries were horror. Okay, so the 3 little piggies are out. Next, in order to actually lift it, you need to take out this latch. So I will take out this screw. So there's the ring. This is the little latch, and then you have a spring on a screw. The screw is one of the 3 screws that are keeping this bit in place, and this part is part of the aperture control system, and yeah, we'll have to take it out. I will take this one out. All right, and I'll take it out completely. I was going to try to explain the things to take care of, but it's a bit early. So when you take all the screws out, this whole piece lifts. Now, except for this oily mess in here, it has 2 control arms. One control, both are spring-loaded. So one controls the set aperture, and the other one closes the aperture blades to that set aperture. Okay, now this fork-like control arm should engage with this little tab, and that little tab opens and closes the aperture. The other one, the smaller control arm, should engage within this U-shaped piece, and this controls the set aperture. All right, next we have a couple of kind of sliders that are actually keeping the whole optical block in place. So when you turn the focusing ring, the front part of the lens, or the optical part, won't turn but translate, so move forward and backwards. And this is where I made a mistake, because what I did yesterday was I moved this focusing ring. I took out the 3 screws, took it apart, and then I kind of messed around with the focusing, with the actual focusing ring, so with the ring that actually moves the helicoid. And when I did that, this part of the helicoid well, this part has two grooves. In each groove, one is here, one is here. In each groove, these two parts are riding the grooves. So these two parts are riding the two grooves. And when I messed around with it, it seemed they just got out of position. And that was the point where pretty much I lost not the connection. I lost the way, the mating of the threads, and that means that if you don't know exactly how they thread or how they connect to each other, you pretty much lose the ability to focus correctly, of course. Okay, now and this happened because the lens has particular design, well, for my lack of experience, of course. This screw is the limiting screw, so it limits the turning of the focusing ring. You can only turn it from, come on, move. You can only turn it from here, so the infinity mark, to here. Usually, in, let's say, in a Jupiter lens, there is a focusing, a limiting screw, and another ring that has this cutout, so it can only turn from one point to the other until each end of the cutout hits the screw. In this case, that ring is part of the lens, part of the body. The actual focusing ring is on top of it, and it's fixed in 3 little grab screws. And that means that the actual focusing ring has no physical connection to the focusing movement. In this case, the limit of the motion is done by the focusing ring. So when you take this out, if you turn the ring that this one is connected to, it will turn freely because it has no notches, no stoppers to hit the screw. And that was my mistake. I took this out. I started to mess around with the ring that focuses the lens, and I lost all my, let's call them landmarks. I'm sorry, I'm quite tired. It was a long day, and I realize I'm kind of confusing maybe. Anyhow, what I would suggest doing is put the lens at infinity. Okay, so it's hard stop on infinity. And then, without moving things, take out the 3 little screws that keep this ring in place. So we have 1 screw, two screws, and the third. Now, after you take out the 3 little screws, okay, it's still at infinity. Now this ring is no longer connected to the actual pieces of the focusing mechanism. So you can simply slide it forwards. It won't go all the way out because it stops in this light shield, sunshade. Okay, and now we have 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. Next, in getting everything aligned properly, the next thing would be to actually make a mark that connects the three pieces, and that mark, when you reassemble the lens, must realign in order to get the confirmation that the three pieces were mounted correctly. If that makes sense, it will make sense along the way. So in order to do that, I will take out my metal ruler, and I already have a mark here. Okay, so that mark is aligned with the infinity position. So I will try to get the ruler as square as possible. Now I don't know how I'm going to do this. I think something like this. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3 marks. My problem right now is that I have multiple marks. Okay, so I have a mark here, another mark here. These are marks that I had to do yesterday in order to get it back together. And the other problem is that, if I remember correctly, this mark that I did yesterday, I did before messing it up. And that's what I'm a bit weary about. Why isn't it lining with this one anymore? But I checked it on this body, on which I also checked my other lenses that were not messed around with. They all focused correctly to infinity. This one focused correctly to infinity, and therefore I am sure that this is the correct position for infinity. All right, now the next, I will also scratch an arrowhead on this one, so I know it's the correct one. So arrow, arrow. So arrow marks the spot, right? All right. Now the next fail-safe measurement would be to get a leaf gauge, all right, and measure the gaps between the three. So this is one gap. Now this one needs to be measured super precisely because the threads between these two elements are very fine, so they have a very fine pitch. That means that if you have a bit of a play in the leaf gouge, in the filler gouge, the risk is that for that play you could have, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a turn leeway. So let's see, this one is loose. I'm going to go for, let's start at 1 millimeter and move down from there because it's probably closer to 1.5. Oh no, look, this is quite close. So I will try 0. This is 0.05, this is 1. I talk in millimeters because I have no fucking idea what the inches and feet and stuff is all about. Sorry for that. This one fits pretty snugly. And I could also add let's add another 0.03. I'd say that's about it. So 1.08, 1.08, and for the other gap I will simply use this one because the pitch of this thread, so this is the helicoid, the one with multiple entrances, is very big, so if you get it wrong it will be very wrong. This is 3.5. Okay, I'm gonna mark it down, so I'll write it in my notebook, and I will write that I have 1.08 for the first ring and 3.5 for the second ring. Hopefully it is okay. And from here to here I have 29.9. All right, now this is where the story gets even worse. Normally, I mean, not normally. Normally, from what I know, from what I know from the Russian lenses or the Soviet lenses, you have an optical group, so the optics of the lens, and you have the focusing part of the lens. Because lenses need to focus in a very, very precise point on the film plane, otherwise you will be out of focus or you'll have fuzzy images or unsharp images, and obviously everybody wants a sharp image. What the Soviets did, and probably most of the other producers or manufacturers of lenses, was to adjust the spacing, or better said, adjust the position of the optical group in respect to the film plane or the lens mount via spacers. So you get round spacers. This is the spacer from a Jupiter or Industar lens, I don't remember. And using different thicknesses of spacers, you can place your optical group wherever it needs to be. This one has no spacers. And because it has no spacers, it only occurred to me last morning, they had to adjust for the position of the optical group differently. And one of the big problems was that yesterday, after I messed up, of course, I opened up another lens because I've got three, almost messed up the second lens as well, but that's another story. So I opened up the second lens because I said, okay, I'll open up one that is known to be good. I will take measurements of these gaps and I will try to reproduce them in this lens. Well, it doesn't work like that. This distance from here to here might be similar, but the gaps between these two, between the three rings or the three elements, will be different. Because I think what they did was get all the lens together, put it on a collimator, so to adjust for infinity, and they adjusted infinity by twisting this lens slightly. When infinity was reached, they would simply place the focusing ring in that position, if that makes sense. Because the focusing ring, you can put it here, you can put it here. Okay, let's say that right now this is the correct position, all right, but it's not focusing on infinity. Let's say it focuses too close. So what you do, you unscrew the 3 screws, you take the ring, move it a bit further, if you move it further, it will focus for, even further away. That's okay. Get the screws back, fiddle around with the focusing until the lens is focused on infinity. Then take the screws, let's say now you are like here. This is infinity. So if you twist the ring even more, you will focus beyond infinity. You have the lens focused correctly at infinity, take out the screws again, take the ring out, put it back in the correct position, tighten the screws. You're done. Okay, and by doing this, this ring will always be aligned with this mark, because the ring is actually stopped against the limiting screw. The limiting screw is part of this piece. This piece is the one with the 3 holes that keep this piece in position. So in very little words, this, of course, you need to be within reason. You can't have it all messed up and expect to fine-tune the focus by turning this. No, you have to be, you need the correct entrance of the helicoid. So if you get one entry to the left or one entry to the right, you're out of the game. This one needs to be around here and so on. And long story short, if the pieces are not set correctly, if you didn't reassemble the lens correctly, the last pieces of the puzzle, so these 2 guys and this one, will not match. You will either not be able to match the 3 holes on this piece with the 3 holes on this one, or you will have the lens set to infinity and these 2 guiders or guides will not align with the notches beneath them. And that was quite a challenge. But I was in a place where I had no idea which entry of the helicoid is the correct one, and I tried several and my measurements wouldn't match and these wouldn't match, and I really had to stop, take a deep breath and try to reverse engineer it. So I kind of went from top to bottom, from bottom to top. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's get back to the story, to the long story. Okay, disassembly time. So, in order to disassemble the helicoid, now that we have the 3 marks, we have the 3 measurements, the next step is to, without moving anything around here, put the lens on its nose and take out the 2 guides. Because when you take these 2 guides out, what happens is that in effect, when turning the focusing ring, not the exterior one but the actual focusing piece of the focusing mechanism, the front element will turn, will not remain stationary. And if it turns, that means that the way it mates with the next ring remains unchanged. You will see just in a moment what I mean. It's a bit difficult for me to be coherent. So right now I will keep an eye on these two marks, right, and I will simply unscrew this one. Now this is the fine pitched thread. It's a regular thread, so it's simply a screw. It has only one entry, so it doesn't matter where you start putting it back, it will always go back in the same position. Okay, so this one is out, and now we have to deal with this one. And we'll go back to our marks and start to unthread it. Now this one you will need to turn it clockwise to unscrew. These are the threads. Okay, so turning it clockwise and keeping being very attentive to the point where when the two elements separate. Okay, so we go. You see how small the movement and how big the effect. Okay, and it should separate pretty soon. And it's separated. I will simply put it back like this and make another mark that tells me the correct entry point, and I will put a cross on this one because I have an arrow and I have at least a double line from my previous attempts, but the cross marks the spot. If I keep it tilted, it's the X, so the X marks the spot. So X, arrow, two lines, this is error, one line, another error. I kind of marked the bloody thing. So this is the ring that actually focuses the lens, and the focusing ring that I can now take out is like this, something like this, and the screws bite in this channel. Now if you look closely, and if you don't, I will tell you anyhow, there are a lot of marks on this ring, marks from the grub screws. Now there is for sure one set of marks that were originally on the lens when I started the disassembly first time. There are, let's say, another 2 or 3 sets of marks that I probably made without wanting to make when I kept fiddling around and trying to get the infinity. But I see a lot more than 4. I see 1 on this edge, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe not 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this tells me that somebody before me also tried to set the infinity and kind of is in line with my theory that this is how they collimated the lens. Okay. Next. Well, this is pretty much the extent to which I disassembled the lens last night. This is the rear element that simply unscrews. It also has a retainer if you really need to take the optics out. And now the aperture blades are in plain sight. Okay, I have no beef with them, so I'll just let them be. I don't even think I want to take it apart further, although in order to clean this one really well, I would kind of like to take it apart. What I did see, I did see two screws here, and I will take them out. Hopefully I'm not going to mess anything up, and I suppose if I take them out, this whole piece will lift. Although it's a bit strange to have the front part of the lens, optics and all, kept in place by two little screws. Maybe it unscrews after I take them out. I don't know. Let's see. So this is one. This is the other. And I would better put a mark, a very small mark here. It might be visible at the end, but I can live with a little scratch. I can't really live with a fucked up lens, even if it's pretty worthless. Because it's not sought after, not because it would be a bad lens. I'm sure it's pretty decent. Okay, so nothing happens. And yup, it unscrews. Alright, and now this one probably can be, no? How do I take this out then? Why isn't there any kind of retainer or anything that I can unscrew? No idea. Anyhow, doesn't matter. I would have liked to try to see if I can fix this, because I see there is some sort of a ring. It's like a piston ring that should give enough friction for this light shade, or I don't know how it's called for the moment. My brain is freezing. Anyhow, doesn't matter. We have another thing here. This is the baffle that I talked about. That will simply lift out of position. Alright. This is oil of some sort. And we have another retainer that gives me access to this middle group, but okay, and I see 3 screws here, and maybe if I take the 3 screws, this whole thing will separate from this, and that's actually what I want to do, to get this part of the focusing mechanism out so I can clean it up. Okay, some more exploration to do. I guess my desire to explore these old cameras and lenses is bigger than my fear of breaking them. Otherwise I would have probably stopped some time ago. Okay. Ta-da! Almost, I was almost correct. Oh my god, what is all this oil? I dropped a screw. Alright. Jesus. I wonder where it came from. It's probably the lubricant on the helicoid. It most likely separated in two fractions, so fluid and solid, and the solid one is here. I did clean it up a bit yesterday because it was horrible to work with, and the other one is here. Luckily nothing on the blades. I didn't really want to mess with the blades anyway. And okay, and now we have another set of screws that keep this one connected to this one, and the black one is probably part of this one, so I think I'm getting there. Yes. And these three screws are sunken screws. I'll put them here. Okay. And before taking the last one out, I would like to make a note. So I have two cutouts in this ring, so in the helicoid, and I would like to connect visually the cutouts to the position of these three screws. Now there is a retainer here, but I want, that's the retainer from this control plate, so I'm not messing with that one. Okay, let's mark this groove. So I'll put a diagonal mark on this groove, and that mark corresponds to this bit. So mark here and mark here, so I can put this back in the correct orientation. I don't think it matters, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to try to imagine in my head each component how it's going to be put back, because I always mess things when I do that. Now this one gets out, and this is the final piece of the puzzle. Of course, I could go on and disassemble the aperture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blades, so not really very complicated, although on this part looks pretty normal. This part looks like this. So if it works, just leave it alone. Okay, so this was part 1. I will clean everything and then I'll be back for part 2, when hopefully all the reassembly will go smoothly. It's not a complicated lens as it seems, but all all lenses tend to become extremely complicated when you mess around with helicoids, especially these, let's say, double helicoids. They are not double helicoids, but anyhow. So not something as easy as a Jupiter that only has two mounting pieces, two screwable pieces, and you only need to mark one entry point and that's that. No, you need to have separated entry positions or final sitting positions for all the pieces. Okay, that's it. See you next time.